Critical Role's Twitch audience is shrinking. But here's why that's okay.
Nobody freak out.
For years, the beating heart of Critical Role has been its Twitch streaming channel. It was the direct faucet from which fans could watch all of their favorite Critical Role programming and interact with other fans as the show aired live. During the pandemic, the Twitch stream was bigger than ever. Twitch Tracker, a site that, well, tracks Twitch, reports that the show averaged 60,000 or more viewers per episode during the pandemic. The start of Campaign 3 marked an all-time high for the Critical Role Twitch stream. The premiere episode maxed out at over 200,000 viewers, with an average of about 120,000 viewers watching. However, viewership has declined in recent months, about a 30% decline from pre-pandemic numbers. For example, the March 14th, 2019 episode of Critical Role, which is Campaign 2, Episode 55, about equivalent to where we are about now in Campaign 3, had an average of 47,532 viewers. It maxed out at 55,840 viewers. By comparison, the March 16th, 2023 episode had an average of 32,434 viewers, with a max of 38,435 viewers. There's an even wider gap in comparable January and February episodes. There are some comparables with drops of 50% or more, but the Apogee Solstice arc seems to have caused live viewing to perk back up. Now, the numbers themselves vary by episode to episode, but a trend emerges. There's just significantly less people watching the Twitch stream now than before the pandemic. Now keep in mind, we don't know the full viewership numbers of every Critical Role episode. The episodes air live on YouTube, and they also rebroadcast on Twitch. They put up video on demand on YouTube, and they even have an audio version, a podcast. It's impossible to get exact numbers of individual Critical Role episodes because most of the other ways that you can watch or listen to them don't have public metrics that we can analyze. But the Twitch numbers paint an interesting picture, one that flies contrary to what we think we know about Critical Role. Is Critical Role's audience somehow declining? Is the show losing its influence over the tabletop RPG industry? And the answer is, well, probably the opposite. In a previous video, we talked about Critical Role entering the next phase of its media empire. It started as a home game that was turned into a streaming show, became its own business, and grew to the point that now it has multiple television shows, not streaming shows, TV shows. Now it has a game studio, it has a record label, it has a production banner, and it is actively buying IP like the Midst podcast. The Critical Role empire is bigger than ever, and the franchise has more ways than ever to engage with its viewers and fans that have nothing to do with the Twitch channel. We can see how this plays out just on YouTube. According to Social Blade, a different website that does a little less granular job of tracking various YouTube channels, Critical Role's average monthly video views has increased by nearly 20% when comparing 2020 numbers to 2022 numbers. It's not a perfect comparison, we're only using publicly available statistics, but it's clear that more people are watching Critical Role's content than ever before on YouTube. The Critical Role audience is definitely growing, it's just not necessarily watching live. It used to be, way back in the long-off days of 2018 and 2019, if you were a hardcore critter, you kept up with the latest episode live. Now that's probably still true to some extent, but with comics and novels and a TV show and another TV show coming, there are plenty of different ways to get sucked into Exandria without knowing anything about the current campaign. Like, really, can you really call yourself a critter if you don't have a theory about the identity of the Wonder Worker? The answer is yes. If you like Critical Role, you're a critter. There's nothing more to it. There's no gatekeeping going on here whatsoever.
You can't trick me anymore.
My point is, there's just a lot more to follow and watch and read these days than there was even 2 years ago. And also, because the show isn't technically live anymore, they pre-record the show, there's no longer the mystique of watching live programming, even though Critical Role doesn't change the show post-filming, and Critical Role kind of benefited from that same kind of mindset. But coming out of the pandemic, there's just a lot more to do in life as well. Spending 4 hours on a Thursday night to watch a show live seems a lot less of a priority, especially when you can just rewatch the rebroadcast, or the Twitch video on demand, or the YouTube video on demand a few days later. And to be clear, the decline in Twitch viewership almost certainly has nothing to do with the quality of Critical Role. Critical Role has changed a lot over the past few years, but I don't really think you can point to one metric as a sign that Campaign 3 is somehow worse than Campaign 1 or Campaign 2. The reality is that Critical Role has grown to the point that you can be a passionate, invested fan without having to watch the show live. And honestly, that's probably a good thing for those of us who live on the East Coast. Now, does this mean that the Twitch channel will go away anytime soon? Well, we can't predict the future, but it's probably unlikely. Critical Role's weekly D&D campaign is still the heart of the franchise. It's the seed from which all the other stuff, the books, the records, the TV shows, the comics, the merchandise, the movies, it's the seed that all springs from. It's the equivalent to Marvel Comics. Sure, Marvel makes a lot more money off of the movies, but where do all those cool characters come from? Why do you think Marvel still makes comics despite the annual sales of every single comic that Marvel puts out in a year is the equivalent to one bad box office weekend of one of its films? Still, it's pretty interesting to see Critical Role evolve in real time. So my question for you is, what do you think is next for Critical Role? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons.